Hello, Richard Dawkins, The God Delusion, Chapter 8. I'm going to make a preliminary video on Chapter 8 because I'll have to cover some other topics in another video. But I wanted to address the early part of the chapter where Dawkins says that he's not a fundamentalist of the atheist belief. He doesn't consider himself a fundamentalist. He doesn't like that term. He says that he's passionate about his view because he believes in evolution because of the evidence, right? So he says there's so much evidence of evolution, and he sets up evolution on one hand and any type of religious belief, Christian belief, fundamentalist belief on the other side. What happens if somebody believes in evolution but they're not an atheist? I see evolution. I see the evidence for evolution. There is no evidence that the source of evolution is nothingness. This is what Richard Dawkins believes in. He believes that the source, the original source of life, the original source of creation, if you want to call it that, is nothingness. We came out of primordial soup. It was just won the lottery. It must have happened that way. It had to have happened that way. That's his only evidence that he has, is it must have happened that way. That's his evidence. He has no evidence for the creation of life. He believes in evolution. I believe in evolution too. I see it. I see it in nature. Okay, the pepper moths, they change. Yeah, well, you kill enough of the wrong color, they're going to change over time. You see plant life and things evolving over time, and the geology that Darwin talked about, and the eons of time shaping the earth. Sure, I believe in evolution, but the source of creation, Christ revealed to us that there is a God that cares about us, that we're important to God. This is what Christ taught us. And we can take that and throw it out and say, oh no, that doesn't mean anything because I don't like the book it came out of. I don't like all the stories in the Old Testament and all that old stuff. And now we're really getting into the nitty-gritty of the book, The God Delusion. Sorry, the geese are going bonkers here. It's an attack on Christianity, specifically. There's no doubt about that, right? And to recognize the argument for what it is, that it's an attack on Christianity, we should have an understanding of why Christianity holds today, because of the teachings of Christ. Because the teachings of Christ incorporate these confused thoughts about the Old Testament scriptures. And Jesus instructs us in very succinct ways the purpose behind the Old Testament scriptures, the purpose behind the law of Moses. And he gives us a very succinct and specific instruction on how to be free from religion, how to be free from dogma, how to be free from error. But most people, and I would dare to say Richard Dawkins included, are vehemently opposed to Jesus Christ because they say, we don't want that man to rule over us. We don't like that man. They stop up their ears or they'll throw stones. Those are the only two reactions oftentimes to anything related to the man Jesus Christ, who declared himself to be the Son of God and told us that we could be sons and daughters of God as well. There's a lot of information in chapter 8. I'll try and go through more specific points, and maybe I can write some notes on them to this video, but I don't want to make another huge long video. I'd rather shorten it up so that it's easier for people to absorb. But I think it's valuable to read a book such as this and not insulate ourselves away from the current discussion. Don't insulate ourselves away from the current zeitgeist of what's going on in people's minds and thoughts, where atheism is expanding rampantly and maybe giving people an initial burst of feeling of intellectual elitism and helping them to feel better about themselves because they said, well, I've been able to abandon my religion. Bill Burr says they just let it go. He just left it behind, and it makes him feel relief. It makes him feel better, so that he doesn't have to deal with things such as guilt or obligation or rules or any of the baggage that's usually associated with a religion that has been built up around the ancient scriptures, built up by man around the ancient scriptures. Christ came and wiped them all away. He didn't say, oh, here, you need this special book you have to carry with you and follow all the rest of your days. Oh, here, you have to come and join this specific religion. No, he didn't do that at all. He said, my words are spirit and they are life. He left his words for us. And if anybody were willing to take the time to read the words of Christ and apply them, both to Old Testament scriptures or any scriptures, and the scriptures yet to be discovered, apply them to that, and apply them to new doctrine which is being introduced, new ideologies which are being introduced to the world and are captivating the world and modifying the thoughts of people that consider themselves at the top of the food chain, the intellectual elite, and say, well, you know, we can't talk about that because that's religion, and all religion is just not based on science. We have to throw it out. I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about the words of a man that walked on the earth, on the one by whom we mark our calendars, AD and BC, before the Common Era, right? And in the Common Era, people don't want to have anything referencing to religion. They're going to have a hard time changing the date. Eventually, I suppose they'll say, well, we don't want to call it 2020 anymore. We want to call it the year 10,000 or the year 1000, because we don't want any reference to the birth date of Christ or the time of Christ. That's how homophobic they are towards that specific individual person who lived and died for the world and showed us that God the Father loves us. My heart is burdened, as you can see, and I'm zealous, as you can see, for the words of Christ. I believe that they can free us from these type of anti-human ideas which are presented in here, which foster things like eugenics, which by his own admission are very often the cause of wars and turmoil and pain and horrific chaos of humans fighting against other humans, when Christ came and said, love God and love your neighbor as yourself. And so how can I love Richard Dawkins? Well, Richard, God bless you, brother. I wish you well. I hope that Christ reveals himself to you as he did to me. If that's possible, in your old age, you're still alive, if you happen to see this. That's the only way I know how to love you, is to, well, I love you by reading your product. You're wanting people to read your product, and so I've done that, a step in the right direction. But now I appeal to you as a fellow human being, saying, hey, have you read all the words of Christ, or have you just gone through the Old Testament and tried to pick out the chaotic parts? Have you given the words of Christ a fair view, a fair viewing, a fair reading, a fair listening? Have you listened to what he has to say? And if you do, I think it may influence your perspective, and it may help you, and may give you the freedom that you're looking for, because most of your effort here is trying to get free from dogma, trying to get free from religion. And I respect that. I can understand that. I can understand that there's a lot about religion that caused a lot of problems throughout history and today. But the solution that will allow people to love one another and to love God, see, the two go together. It's hard to love one another if you don't have a love of God. If you abandon God, all kinds of chaos can happen. And that's what most of the Bible teaches. Most of the Old Testament is talking about the chaos that happens when God is left out of the picture. So I'll leave it at that. Not going to go overboard, but that's my initial message on chapter 8 from what I've seen so far. And there's a lot of other stuff that I'm going to have to dig into. Thanks a lot for watching. God bless you. Have a wonderful, blessed day. Take care now.